This is where I might have some difficulties in getting on this YouTube kind of. I want this to stay on here. Okay, now it is. Okay, friends, let's go ahead and start with reciting the Namo Tassa and three refuges for those who like to join in that. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddhang Saranang Gacchami. Dhammang Saranang Gacchami. Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. Dutiyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami. Dutiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami. Dutiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. Tatiyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami. Tatiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami. Tatiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. So good evening, friends. Welcome to this Wednesday evening Dhamma discussion and meditation practice. So this evening we are going to be continuing on our review of the Sammaditthi Sutta that we started 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I hope most of you were able to get the mailing I sent out on Tuesday And we're going to be switching to the shared screen and continuing to review the Paticca Samuppada, the 12 links of dependent origination, which are part of the Sammaditthi Sutta, developing the right view. So, see if I can get the screen. See, that thing disappeared. I don't know how it.
I think you want the bottom one still.
What?
This one?
No, that's the YouTube. I don't want that.
I think it has the other one on there as well.
No, I don't want that.
Yeah, can you switch to this tab?
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, friends, I think last week we left off with craving. We're going through the Paticca Samuppada in reversed order, and that craving arises because of feeling. So dependent on feeling arises craving. And feeling is very important, the link, because feeling is the first sort of triggering off of the mental process. So with each sensory impression, each time we hear, see, taste, smell, touch, or think about an object, those sense impressions run through the nervous system where they reach the mind and trigger off, perception. And feeling are basically three kinds: pleasant feeling, painful feeling, or neither pleasant nor painful feeling, usually called neutral feeling. So these feelings arise with each of the six senses: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and the mind, each time they are impacted. So the feeling is a conditioned response to the vibration. What really comes through our senses is a sensory vibration through the nervous system. And as it's running through the nervous system, it's sensed as something pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And then it triggers off the memory and perception. So that's why understanding feeling, when you understand feeling, then you will understand the rest of the mental process. But the feelings are basically. Now, when we say feelings in English, it's usually when you ask a person, how are you feeling? They say, well, I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling happy. Well, that's an emotion. But feeling, or the word Vedana, feeling is a translation for the Pali word Vedana, and it's simply a pleasant, painful, or neutral sensation. It's not really the same as the emotional, doesn't have an emotional sense to it. That comes next. But usually we always want to have pleasant feelings, but these feelings are conditioned by the object that impacts on the senses. And the whole world revolves around feeling, actually. Because feeling triggers off the craving and grasping, as we covered last week. Because we crave pleasant feelings and we have aversion to painful feelings. And we have indifference to neutral feelings. So all of our life is spent in reacting to mostly pleasant and painful feelings. They're constantly changing depending on what is coming through the senses. So it's important to, that's in the mindfulness training, that's what we learn to pay attention to. Feelings is one of the foundations of mindfulness. So it's when a noble disciple understands feeling, understands the origin of feeling, the cessation of feeling, and the way leading to the cessation of feeling, in that way he has arrived at right view. And the way to the cessation of feeling is, of course, practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. And the first part of the Eightfold Path is right view. So having the right view, understanding what feelings are, how they arise through contact with the senses and their condition. The way ever since we were a baby, we were reacting to things, we either like them or dislike them. So we like pleasant feelings, we dislike unpleasant feelings. And then all of our karma is triggered off by that. So, but the feeling produces the craving. Craving also, as I mentioned last week, it can be craving for or craving to get away from whatever objects are coming through our senses. And the feelings arise through contact. And the contact means the sense organs. We have, again, these 6 sense organs, and they're always open for business. Of course, you can close your eyes and you may not have a lot of things coming through your eyes, but let's say your ears are always open for business. Your nose is always open. And, unless you're sleeping. So things are always, just coming through our senses. We can't really control them. So in the normal life, when we're, in our waking state, our eyes are open, and even our thoughts, feelings arise even from our thoughts. So you might have a memory that arises of a desire or of an aversion, and that triggers off more thoughts about it, and then leads to the craving and the grasping. So this process of contact, feeling, craving, and grasping and becoming, that is probably the focus of mindfulness meditation, and where we learn how to change the way that we react to the feelings. And usually we think it's an object. This is very important to understand. Usually we think we like or dislike an object, but actually it's the feeling that we want or don't want. And the object can change the way it produces feelings. For example, you might have a friend, or you had a particular pleasant feeling toward a certain person. As long as they, stroke your ego, or they give you what you emotionally need, or they agree with you. But then when that person starts changing the way that they react to you, or, change their mind, and then you may stop liking that person. They start disagreeing with you. Especially we know nowadays with this political problems that are going on back and forth, and you might have had a friend, you find out that they're a Democrat or Republican, and then tension arises, and, if it could lead to actually, that person stop producing a pleasant feeling in you and create an unpleasant feeling or a painful feeling. And the same with other objects too. all of the sense objects. So these are conditioned. So it's important. It's not the objects that we want, it's the feeling that they produce in us. And the same way people go shopping, they get bored, they want to do something, and so they go shopping to buy stuff, and they think that it's the object that they want. Well, once they get the object, they might use it once or twice, and then it stops producing a pleasant feeling in them because maybe they get bored with it, or there's something new that comes, they get distracted. So these feelings toward sensory objects, change. That's why it's important to understand that it's not really objects that we want, it's the feelings that they produce that we want or don't want. And that's an aspect of wisdom, in a way that we can, change the way we think about, certain objects. So the contact, feelings arise through the contact. And that's why also part of the Dhamma practice is to avoid visiting places that may trigger off desire or aversion in you, because the way that they arise is through contact, through seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. Then these desires for various objects, the memory of them, the desire or the aversion arise. So that's why it's called guarding the senses, guarding the sense doors, and avoiding places that would cause contacts, unwelcome contacts that would, distract the mind. So that when you try to meditate, so usually, when you try to meditate, if you're meditating in a noisy place and with people playing their stereos or people mowing their lawn, the neighbors, and you easily get distracted by noises. So when people meditate, they try to find a place that has a minimum of distractions, because the distractions simply arise through this contact. And then how does contact arises? It arises through the sixfold base. And so this is the monks were asking the Sariputta. There's another way to talk about right view, and that's because of the sixfold base. Now that means our senses. When we're born with the six senses, and as we grow up, they're constantly being bombarded by the stimulations of the world, as I've already mentioned. And and we can't do a whole lot about it. It depends on the environment that you're in, wherever you're going. These sixfold bases are open to whatever stimulations are moving about. And that's why the mindfulness is very important, to be able to observe the way you're starting to react to things, and to hopefully, refrain from, unwholesome types of thoughts, speech, or actions based on any of these sensory objects. So the sixfold sense base, actually, there's three parts to that. There's the objects in the external world or within our mind. And then there's what is called the organ. You have the eye that works, and you have an object. But then also you need the attention to the object for that contact to arise. Because let's say you have an ear, and your ear is working, and there's sounds going on in the room, but if you're distracted, like rubbing an itch, or you're consumed in some emotion, you may not hear that sound. Although your ear is working and the object is there, there has to be the attention there for the mind to have a full-blown contact. So the same as, if your eyes are closed and you're not having a lot of contacts through even the eye is working, the objects are not there. So that's an important part of understanding also this sixfold sense. Sometimes that's called the sixfold sense sphere, or the sixfold bases. Each organ has a sensitive nerve endings in it that transmit the sensory vibrations through the nervous system to the mind or to the brain, where then the five aggregates get triggered off. So understanding the sixfold base, the origin of it, it comes with the birth, of course. The cessation of it comes through either death or developing the high levels of formless jhana, where you're temporarily cutting off the connection to the senses by entering a formless jhana like infinite space or nothingness. But normally, they're always open for business. So that's part of understanding that. And then what gives rise to the sixfold base? It's the mentality and materiality, or nama rupa. That means having the mind and body. So when you're a baby in the womb, your mind and body is developing, and you don't have the full senses yet, but then when you're born, the baby comes out of the womb, then it starts hearing and seeing and smelling, and even tasting things. It has that contact now with the world. So the sixfold sense bases are developed sort of in the womb, the senses, but only when you come out of the womb, you have that full-blown sixfold sense bases are working. Now, of course, a baby in the womb, it can hear things. What we're told, doctors tell us that, babies can hear sounds or certain things like that. But for most intents and purposes, it's when we come out of the womb that all these senses then get more active. And then that starts triggering off the painful and pleasant feelings and the reactions. But it takes time for the brain to develop its brain cells and the connections between the objects and so on. That's a whole other sphere of the neuroscience. But anyway, so the sixfold sense sphere depends on the body and the mind. So that is also part of the right view. And so so mentality and materiality actually refers to the five aggregates. That means material matter, then feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness. So basically the body and mind, it's developing in the womb of the baby, the body and the mind, but when it comes out, then that sixfold sense sphere starts really working, producing all these feelings and triggering off all the rest of that. So the five aggregates are what are referred to as the mentality and materiality. Of course, this process is working not only for a baby in the womb or when it comes out, but the whole life, this process is going on. We always have mentality and materiality with us. We always have the sixfold base with us. and it's open for business all the time. So feelings are constantly flowing in and out, unless one is sleeping or again in a high state of jhana. And the materiality is made up of the four great elements. We've talked about all these things before. So materiality means any material object, whether it's the physical body or anything in the external world. And then what is the cause of mentality and materiality is the consciousness. Now, this sometimes is difficult to understand because there's three different aspects to this. The consciousness, when a baby is born, actually its consciousness comes from another source, and that it contains the karmic impressions with it. And then as the baby grows in the womb, and then when it's born, the consciousness then becomes, the moment-to-moment consciousness of the sense experiences. But then the consciousness is still arising. Without the consciousness, you won't be aware. That's part of the sixfold sense base. It needs the consciousness. So, as I mentioned, when you're sleeping, somehow the consciousness is cut off. So there may be sounds going off in your room. There could be other things going on in your body, but because you're asleep, the consciousness, the attention is not there. And therefore the consciousness of yourself, your body and mind while you're sleeping doesn't occur in the whole other process. Again, this is a little bit difficult to understand, but through meditation, one can gradually understand that. So what is consciousness? What is the origin of consciousness? The cessation of consciousness, the way leading to the cessation of consciousness. And of course, the way to the cessation of the consciousness is, again, it's either attaining full enlightenment and not being reborn, or it's attaining enlightenment. And that consciousness, the conditioned consciousness, always has the sense of I behind it, the sense of I am conscious. So at any time you have the idea that I am seeing, I am hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling, touching, I am feeling this and that, the ideas of I, me, and mine are the expression of the consciousness for the person who's still in the conditioned state, who has not attained enlightenment. But for the Buddha, he doesn't have a regular consciousness. He has an unconditioned consciousness, a liberated consciousness, or an awareness. And again, that's a little bit difficult for a normal person to understand. Now, this consciousness arises because of the formations. And one understands formations or sankhara. So sankhara basically refers to the unconscious mind, where all the impressions of our life, the memory, and so on, and the habit formations that we've acquired, either from a past life or from the life where since we were born in this life, we've been doing all kind of actions. All these actions are remembered in the mind and become the fuel for our craving and desire. So it's the way we react to things. It's the memory of those mental formations are the way that we've acted and reacted in the past. And so when they produce the consciousness, because the formations are dependent on ignorance. So most of these formations, again, they're just the habits, the way we think, the way we reacted to things. It's the emotions that are deeply buried in the unconscious that only come up when certain conditions are met, these formations, and which are, the triggering off our consciousness too. And then the ignorance. So basically, this ignorance is not understanding the Four Noble Truths. And not having the right view. So all these things that we've been covering in this sutta, the Sammaditthi Sutta, is right view is the antidote for ignorance, or the wrong view, taking things for self, not understanding the law of karma, not understanding impermanence, and not understanding the ultimate sort of emptiness of the ego and so on. It's because of that ignorance that these volitional formations are kept working, producing consciousness, producing the mind and body, and the contact, feeling, and all the rest of it. So that's why when a noble disciple has understood ignorance, the origin of ignorance, the way leading to the cessation of ignorance is basically, the Noble Eightfold Path, which starts with right view. Now, this last part, so basically that Paticca Samuppada actually forms, the second and third of the Four Noble Truths. So the Paticca Samuppada in the forward order, depending on ignorance, arise volitional formations. Depending on the volitional formations arises consciousness. Dependent on consciousness arises the mentality and materiality, name and form, and all of the rest. And that's how the mind evolves. And the cessation, with the cessation of ignorance, is the cessation of the volitional formations, consciousness, and all the rest. So that is really how a noble disciple becomes one of right view and has arrived at this true Dhamma, really understanding how the mental process works and how suffering arises due to our craving, grasping, and becoming, because we don't understand the nature of the mind and the world. Again, I know that's a big mouthful, but that's the whole practice of Dhamma is focused on that. So now, Sariputta, having explained all that, there's one more. Those monks who were listening to this discourse by Venerable Sariputta, they keep on, even though they understood all those things, they're delighting in how Sariputta explains the Dhamma, so they keep on asking him, is there another way that, one is the right view? Come on, give us some more Dhamma, So then the Sariputta explains, says, when a noble disciple understands the taints, the origin of the taints, the cessation of the taints, and the way leading to the cessation of the taints, in that way one is of right view, whose view is straight. And what are the taints? There are the three taints: the taint of sensual desire, the taint of being, and the taint of ignorance. So sensual desire, we have sensual desire because we're clinging to the state of being. We're clinging to our life. We want to live, to enjoy those sensual pleasures. And of course, but that involves us in the law of karma, and we wind up having to suffer for it. everybody wants to be happy, but because of ignorance, they do things that bring them unhappiness, chasing sensual desires, lying, cheating, stealing, sexual misconduct, intoxicating the mind, breaking all the precepts. We're doing that thinking we're trying to be happy, but in fact, we're causing us suffering. And it's because we haven't understood the law of, karma. So, and therefore those taints, sensual desire, the taint of being, the craving for existence, and the taint of ignorance, and not knowing the truth. So with the cessation of ignorance, there's the cessation of the taints. And with the cessation of the taints and the way leading to the cessation of the taints, the person entirely abandons the underlying tendency to lust. They abolish the underlying tendency to aversion. They extirpate or uproot the underlying tendency to the view I am and in the ego conceit. And by abandoning ignorance and arousing true knowledge, they here and now make an end of suffering. In that way, too, a noble disciple is one of right view, whose view is straight, who has perfect confidence in the Dhamma and has arrived at this true Dhamma. That usually pertains to somebody who's reached the level of a Sotapanna. And so that's the end of this sutta. The monks were satisfied and delighted in the Venerable Sariputta's explanation. So friends, that is the sutta on right view. It's really very powerful, and if one could understand that, then one would understand the Dhamma. But without the practice of meditation, it's very difficult to really understand all that on a deep level. So now we're going to sort of stop this sharing and go back to see if any questions have come up, either on the chat screen, or people can raise their hand, or the golden hand, if you know where that is. Okay, there's no chat. Somebody's just saying sadhu, sadhu, sadhu in the chat box. Okay.
Bhante, I have a question.
Yes, Prashant.
Yeah. So, Bhante, do we need to realize all the aspect mentioned in this sutta for right view, or any one aspect we can realize, and that would, will make realize all the aspects of it?
Yeah, at the very beginning, the Buddha mentioned that. If one could just understand the wholesome and the root of the wholesome, the unwholesome and the root of the unwholesome, that means those 10 unwholesome types of thought, speech, and actions, understand them and overcome the root, then one could essentially attain Sotapanna. But without, and he goes through all those different stages. If one could understand birth, the arising of birth, that alone, if one could really do that, one could attain the Sotapanna. Mm-hmm. So yes, any one of those, if one can apply that formula of understanding the arising of it, understanding the ceasing of it, and understanding the path leading to the ceasing of it, then one could arrive at the right view and the stages of enlightenment. Yeah.
So, but just to follow up, but the person who further progresses on the path, once like Shrotapan has done, then he needs to know, he has to realize all of them, right? Then probably
They
to as
will realize all of them. Once you understand one, you will realize all of them.
okay.
But like for instance, look, the Buddha gave his first sermon. After his enlightenment, he went to the Buddha Gaya, or he went to Sarnath, the deer park, and he gave his first sermon to the group of 5 monks. And, or actually, no, one of those monks was like Sariputta. He was walking along and he met one disciple of the Buddha. And this person said, what did the Buddha teach? And all he said was, everything is impermanent. And when Sariputta heard that, he attained Sotapanna. It was like, just hearing one phrase or a couple of words of wisdom. Some people are in that their mind has been developed to a point where just hearing a few words of the truth can trigger off, that experience of, enlightenment. So, but most of us are not at that level, so we have to go on hearing lots of teachings for it to sink in.
I believe that Venerable Sariputta already had a lot of understanding of the wholesome. He was already practicing the like wholesome things. So key thing was like it was a shift where his were momentary. His consciousness shifted from that, as you mentioned, like conditioned consciousness to somehow unconditioned, based on not identifying with the 5 aggregates. That's what happens. That's the key part.
Yes. And understanding the illusion of the ego, letting go of the ego consciousness. That comes through understanding impermanence too. Now, more sort of telling example of that is, the sutra to the teaching of to Bahiya. And I went over that a couple of weeks ago, I think, the Bahiya Sutta. So there was another ascetic. He was a kind of a practicing a Hindu ascetic. And he thought he was enlightened, but then he had doubts. So he wanted to go to the Buddha. And so he came to the Buddha and asked him to teach him a short meditation. And the Buddha was on his alms round. He says, no, now is not the time. Come back in a couple hours after we finish lunch. And this Bahiya kept on pestering the Buddha. No, please, just a few words. Just teach me a teaching in brief, And then again, the Buddha said, no, come back in a couple hours, And he kept on, third time he said, no, please just teach me a few words. So the Buddha said, okay, for you, Bahiya, in the hearing, there's only hearing. In the seeing, tasting, smelling, touching, and thinking, there's only that sensory phenomena. That means there's no object and there's no self in doing that. There's just a pure experience of hearing without the idea of I am hearing, without the idea of a specific object being heard. There's just this kind of empty sensory vibration of hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling, touching, and thinking. And he attained enlightenment, but he got it very quickly because he had been practicing meditation before, different types of jhana and so on. So his mind was ready, just like Sariputta's was ready, and so many other examples in the sutta. And so it's like just tweaking a little bit the way that you think. If the mind is ready, it can have that experience. It can open up to that experience of, the mind opening up to the, emptiness.
So Bhante, so jhana makes it mind kind of like more ready to absorb. Like the key thing is like we are not able to. We get distracted by the hindrances. And the second part of the question you mentioned, like practicing formless jhana, you mentioned that all the six sense bases are basically we cut off completely six sense bases.
Pretty much, not maybe the physical senses.
Physical, okay, mental would be
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you're just in a state of mind. You create a state of infinite space in the mind, infinite consciousness or nothingness, uh, where there's no physical activity.
Mhm.
But it's like a hypnotic state, though. You can't really do much in that state. You can't get up and run around the block or something. And so it's got limited effect. But when you come out of that state, you haven't really you haven't developed wisdom necessarily, and you haven't weakened the ego, and so therefore you get addicted to the just hanging out in these states of formless jhana, and that's why unless you take it to the ultimate state of developing the Nirodha Samapatti, but that's a whole nother subject. But for most people, the average person, being able to master those formless jhanas, even mastering the four jhanas, people can attain a jhana for a few minutes, maybe an hour or so, but to master it means to be able to stay in a particular jhana for hours and hours and come out of it in a very controlled way. And most people don't have the conditions to do that.
So,
So
so Bhante, you mentioned that like Bahia or all this Sariputta, they had like mastered basically in a jhanas and they were practicing jhanas. So,
that's why you come out of the jhana, but the mind still remains super, super clear. So then you can easily see how the process of impermanence, and you can see the subtle vibrations, and you can see how the ego is created. You develop insight into anicca, dukkha, and anatta because the mind is clear at that point. It's the hindrances that keep the mind, in a very contracted state. Like I give the simile of a glass of water. If you have a glass of, well, you scoop water out of the gutter and you put it on a table, and the water might look brown or have little pieces of algae in it, or be a green slimy color, and you can't see through it. But if you leave it on there and don't shake the table for a couple of hours, all that sediment in the water settles down and the water becomes clear. So that's what happens in jhana. But it's such a pleasant feeling that people don't want to start paying attention to impermanence, and so that's why you have to kind of then direct that attention into observing the flow of impermanence to see how the ego is an illusion, and be able to maintain the awareness without that sense of self in it.
but in our case, jhanas are not possible. Then how does mindfulness can help for the in interim for us to
You
get
attain
into this?
you attain vipassana jhana. This is something a lot of people don't understand. There's two types of jhana. One is the apana jhana, which apana jhana means you focus on just one object, such as feeling the touch of air as it's going in and out of the nostril. So that's the popular form of anapanasati. So if you're able to do that, and then block out any reactions to any other sense stimuli, the mind becomes totally absorbed in that subtle sensation of the present moment, that subtle sensation of the air touching, and that creates some kind of counterpart sign that's a mental object. And so the mind gets absorbed in that. And if you just stay in that, then if you can go through the from the first jhana to the second, third, fourth jhana or more refined states like that, and then you could go into the formless jhanas. But in vipassana, instead of totally focusing on one object, the way that I normally advise people, when I'm giving the guided meditations, is to use the breathing in the center of the body. So to feel the expanding and contracting sensations of the breathing. So you're still focused on the breathing, but it's not one tiny little point. And you're feeling many different sensations, but it's still focused. You're still very focused there. Your mind's not wandering around. And so it gives the mind a little bit of playroom. You can feel some sensation in your abdomen, middle chest, upper chest, different sensations. And while you're doing that, you might start then opening up to the body, and you can attain what is called the access concentration through that. And you can attain what is called vipassana jhanas when you're tuned in to the moment-to-moment flow coming through the senses, but without any reacting or without any identification and attachment to any of the sensory stimulus. The mind is just flowing from moment to moment, seeing that impermanence. And the hindrances have subsided through that practice itself. And so you can attain that jhana through the practice of that kind of what we normally call the vipassana, awareness. Develops what is called the vipassana jhana, where you're still aware of things, so you're not totally shut off from them like in the other state of the appana jhana or the formless jhana. So you still have awareness, but the hindrance has subsided, so the mind becomes super, super clear and can see those really subtle sensations. It can see the connections between the five aggregates. You can see how form, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness, and how the ego consciousness is created within that identification. And if you can maintain that kind of perception of impermanence long enough, then the sense of self arises only when you're clinging and reacting and thinking about the things coming through your senses. So you can either shut them off, like doing the formless jhanas, or you can open up to see how fast, they're just arising and vanishing, but the mind has no time to think about any of them because there's always something coming and going. So that's called present moment awareness. And so the mind cannot think of the past and the future about any object. And so the sense of self starts to disintegrate or melt away, because the sense of I arises because of the identification with any of these aggregates. But in that high state of vipassana awareness, there's no time for the mind to bring in the past or the future of any of the objects because they don't last long enough. And that is called the vipassana jhana.
But Bhante, generally, I see that like there is a lot of piti and sukha. So you are saying that like they are very intense. Then we need to just ignore that.
Yeah, you ignore that too. So you go beyond the piti and the sukha. You can attain the second, third, and the fourth jhana through practicing that vipassana, but you're attaining the vipassana jhana states, not the secluded, one-pointed kind of focus on one object only.
So in
Mind
that
is resting in the present moment, but not clinging or reacting to anything coming through the senses. And so the sense of the self dissolves, like the simile, the analogy I give of the ice cube melting, and it becomes the pure awareness.
So in the original jhana state, you make an intention because you don't want to make your mind is like still very calm. So you make an intention that may my piti or may my sukha, subside basically. So you can just take a momentary, make an intention in those states when you are there that may my piti and sukha subside. So then you progress in that vipassana jhanas.
Well, you just have to not to cling to the piti and the sukha. But a lot of people cling to, oh, so nice, and they want to kind of just hang out, groove with the piti and the sukha, and they don't want to bother with, trying to tune into impermanence and so on. So that's a trap. That's what I call the trap of tranquility. Because I've seen it. I've seen people get trapped in that, and it winds up, it's not progress. Even the Buddha has mentioned this in the suttas.
Thank you, Bhante. I think there are some few remarks in chart, I think. Let's see.
Bhaskar, okay. 6 sense objects cause sensations leading to the feelings, craving. Some people seem to think restricting objects, like covering the faces of opposite sex to prevent lust and craving, is a good thing. Is this an effective method for spiritual progress? For a beginner, not covering the faces of them, but like, for monastics, and, we have certain rules that we shouldn't be alone in a room with somebody of the opposite sex, because if we're not, trained in ourself, it could trigger off, latent desire, which could then cause thoughts that becomes distractions, or could lead to, even breaking some precepts. So yes, for monastics, they have a lot of rules that restrict your ability to just freely go out and do anything you want, or things like that. So it's a protection. But once the mind has been highly developed, then if you come into contact with those things, then it's not likely to be tempted or lured into creating, breaking the precepts or creating other kind of unwholesome karma. Okay? So, yeah, there's a little analogy of somebody who said, "Oh, the world is a horrible place," and they said we should just, cover the whole ground, the whole earth with leather, so we can go a walk and we won't hurt our feet, and or to somebody said, well, why don't you just, put on a leather shoe, and then you can walk around and you won't get hurt. Or there's an analogy of somebody, if you can't control your eyes, somebody said, well, let me just pull out my eyes, or go deaf so they don't want to hear. And Buddha said, no, that's no good. He didn't want people to do that, because the desire will still be there in your mind. So you have to transcend desire even in the midst of things around you. And that's done by observing precepts, by developing right view, by practicing, mindfulness and concentration. You learn how to, control the mind. But in the beginning, for beginners and so on, then yes, as we said, the contact, you easily get disturbed by sounds. You get angry when somebody's doing something you don't like. That's because, the mind has not been trained. But once you've been trained in it, those things won't disturb you. So that's why people go on retreats, to retreat centers and places that are more conducive, where there are not so many distractions. But then hopefully you use that insight when you come back to the world, then you will be better positioned to be able to move in the world, but without being so disturbed or affected by whatever is going on around you. There's another question here. During a meditation, if we experience the subtle vibrations and they're very peaceful. If one stays there with the vibrations, it is still a form of clinging. It depends on your mind. No, the that peaceful vibrations. If you're not, you have to apply the insights that this is not me, not mine, not myself, and you have to let the idea that you are experiencing the peaceful vibrations. You have to let go of that even. There is sensations, but no self or person that experiencing them. But normally we have the sense of, oh, I'm getting close now. The mind is so peaceful, and so you're still clinging to that sense of I. So you have to let go of that also. But the Buddha said that the peaceful, the piti, and the sukha. This is innocent, peaceful feeling. Most people have the sensory, pleasant feelings through sensory stimulation. But this pleasant sensation that comes through piti and the sukha, this is not sensory stimulation. This is coming from the quiet mind, the deeper nature of awareness, the present moment in which there's no thoughts of past or future, therefore there's no worries, fears, desires, and the mind reaches its natural, peaceful state. And that's an innocent type of peace. And that's, that's what caused the Buddha to go back to meditation. The Buddha, in his search for enlightenment, he was practicing with all these ascetics, trying to torture his body, to think he was going to overcome aversion through torturing his body and getting used to painful feelings. And then he thought, why should I do all that? He remembered when he was a young child and he went into a jhana. Let me go back and just watch my breath and, attain the natural piti and sukha that comes with that, but not to cling to it. And to even let go of that and then reach the higher jhanas that don't have any piti and sukha in them. And then the nibbana is called paramam sukham. That means beyond happiness. And that's something that, a person cannot understand unless they actually, get a glimpse of that. Anyway, friends, I think we've gone on quite a little bit longer than usual, so I think we're going to finish our discussion here so we can still have our meditation, short yoga practice, and then our meditation. Okay? So we'll take a short few minutes break and come back. Okay, friends, try to stand straight, relax your arms, shoulders and arms at the sides. Gently close your eyes. Feel your head balanced on top. Feel your eyes in the sockets. Start to feel the outline of the standing body. And begin some deep, slow breathing. After breathing in, hold the air in your lungs 2 seconds. And slowly breathe out, feeling the last bit of air go out. Take a few more breaths like that, developing this mindfulness. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Hold the breath a second. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, standing here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Now we're going to combine this breathing with these movements, repeating each movement 3 times. Trying to feel the sensations generated by the breathing and the stretching. So on the next in-breath, raise your arms over the head, interlock the fingers, turn the palms up, straighten your arms, stretch your head back, stretch upwards. You release your fingers, the out-breath, arms back to the sides, feel the air go out as the arms come down. And again, in-breath, interlock the fingers, stretch up, bend back a little, feel the sensations, feel the arch in the spine. Out breath, arms back to the sides. Once more, in. Stretch up, bend back, hold it a little longer. Feel the sensations. Out breath. Feel the air go out. And relax. Close the eyes. Feel your feet pressing the floor. Remember standing. Try to feel the outline of the standing body in the mind's eye. Clothing touching the skin, subtle sensations under the skin. Letting go of your thoughts. On the next in-breath, lift up on the balls of the feet while raising the arms over the head, facing the hands toward each other, and stretch. Out breath, come back down, feel the air go out. Use the in-breath to help lift up the body. Stretch. Out. Once more, in. Stretch. Out. Relax. Keep feeling the body. Don't give the mind time to be carried away in other thoughts. Remember standing. extend. And then next we'll do side bending using both arms. On the in-breath, raise both arms up. Keep your fingers and arms straight, close to your head. On the out-breath, bend over the right side. Keep the arms parallel to each other like railroad tracks. Feel the stretch in the side. In-breath, lift up. And the other side, out-breath. In-breath up. Again to the right, out-breath. In, out, in. Once more to each side. In the out breath, lower the arms. Relax, close the eyes, feel the outline of the body, feel the increased sensations, clothing touching the skin, increased heartbeat, pulsation, itchy sensation. Remember standing. Next we'll do the head turning from right to left. On the in-breath, turn your head to the right, and look over your right shoulder, feel the sensations in the neck. The out breath, turn the head all the way back to the left. You have a stiff neck, just be careful. Look over your left shoulder. In breath back to the right. Out left. Once more to each side. On the in-breath, let the head stop in the center. Relax, keep feeling the body. The activated life force sensations. The deep breathing, stretching, cellular vibrations. There's one last exercise, the backward and forward bending. Just be careful with the back bends. Don't bend back too far the first time. Stiff spine. Turn the palms facing outward and touch the little fingers. And on the in-breath, lift the hands up level to your eyes and begin spreading the arms out to the sides as you bend back. Look up at the ceiling, keep your eyes open. Feel the arch in the back. Carefully lift up on the in-breath, keeping the arms out at the sides. On the out-breath, lower the arms and hands. Downward, bend forward, and downward. See if you can touch the floor. Let the little bones in the lower spine stretch out. Begin lifting up, turn the palms outward again. In breath, raise the hands up. Out breath, bend back, palms out to the sides. In breath, lift up. Out breath, downward stretch. Once more. In, out. In. Third time, try to hold the downward stretch longer. Keep the legs straight, the little bones in the lower spine stretch out. Bend your knees a little bit and lift up. In breath, bring your hands together at the chest. The out breath, hands to the sides. Feel the whole body. Just feel that increased aliveness in the body. There's billions of cells having been charged up with oxygenated blood. This present moment, body-centered awareness. Okay, so now let's come back to our seats, get ready for the sitting. So get comfortable in your sitting posture. Just keep your back straight. Feel your head balanced on top. Just feel your eyes in the sockets. point behind the eyes. Feel the outline of the sitting body, sense of the head on top, arms at the sides, buttocks pressing the seat, feet tucked underneath. Try to hold that outline of the body in the mind's eye. Then begin some deep, slow breathing like we did in the yoga session. Take 2 or 3 seconds to slowly breathe in, hold the air in 2 seconds. Slowly breathe out, feeling the air go out. Just cultivating this basic mindfulness. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Now we're going to try counting our breaths from 1 to 10. Develop a more continuous concentration on the breathing. I'll do the counting for you. Just try to follow that with your breathing and concentration. So with the next expanding in breath, mentally count to 1. Hold the breath a second. With the contracting out breath, also count to 1. Feel the last bit of air go out. Next in breath, 2. Out breath, 2. In 3. Out 3. In 4. Out 4. In 5. Out 5. In 6. Out 6. In 7. Out 7. In 8. out 8, in 9, out 9, in 10, out 10. As the breath goes out, stop trying to control it. Let there be a little longer pause. Let the breath come back in under its own power. We continue to feel the shorter, fainter breaths. Keep your attention focused in the center of the body, where you can feel the air moving through the nostrils. Feel the breathing there. Feel where the clothing rubs against the skin of your stomach or chest as it expands and contracts. Just know when the breath is coming in and knowing when the breath is going out. Know it by feeling it, feeling those subtle sensations. Try to feel like being a scientist looking down through a microscope, observing an experiment. Try to tune into the 4 phases of each breath cycle. Expanding in breath and the brief pause. The contracting out breath and the brief pause. Just over and over and over again. Just letting go of your thought. If it helps to remember, you can use these brief mental reminders. In sitting, out, out, sitting. It's the ongoing, continuous, present moment of this breathing body. In sitting, out, out, sitting, breath by breath, moment by moment. Try to notice how each breath is different, it's longer or shorter. Sometimes you feel the breathing more in the abdomen, sometimes you feel it in the chest, the flow of air in the nostrils. It's always changing. Be alert for thoughts trying to sneak in, to steal your attention away. Just let your thoughts come and go in the back of the mind, keeping the breathing body in the front of the awareness. All the different sensations. Just notice the brief pauses between the breath. You catch the mind lost in thoughts, recognize it as lost. thinking, gently letting go of the thoughts. Take a deep, slow breath, bring the mind back into the body, back to in, sitting, out, out, sitting. You can't feel the breathing easily, or have other distractions, do some more regulated, deeper, slow breathing to help stay awake, centered in the body. Just be aware of any contacts, how they produce some sensations, triggering off some thought. in sitting, out, out, sitting. Just coming back to the flow of awareness, breath by breath, moment by moment. Being alert for any contacts or sensations, generating any thoughts, pleasurable feelings, painful feelings. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. So many different sensations come and go. Contacts come and go. Feelings, thoughts come and go. These are all just the constant flow of the five aggregates, impermanence, coming and going, arising and vanishing through the senses. But awareness is concentrated, centered in the middle. Not grasping, not rejecting. Present moment, body-centered awareness. With each out-breath, allowing the body and mind to relax more and more to the here and now, present moment. If you have a good awareness, it's become like an empty house with nobody home to answer the call, knocking on the doors and windows. Let us spend the last couple minutes of the meditation sending out thought vibrations of metta, friendliness, kindness, best wishes to our own body and mind, expanding that outwards to include all living beings. So again, just do some deep, slow breathing. After breathing in, hold the air in your lungs a few seconds to imagine that oxygenated blood going out to feed your cells of the body. Imagine that as the metta, sending metta to your own body and mind while cultivating these thoughts. May I be well, peaceful and wise, free from greed, hatred, fear and ignorance, free from the self-created pains and sufferings of body and mind due to such unskillful thought, speech and action. May I have the patience, strength, mindfulness and wisdom to meet and overcome all difficulties in life. May I be able to continue to deepen my understanding of the Dhamma and the practice of meditation, to free the mind from confusion and suffering. May I be well, peaceful and wise. Now with each out breath, just imagine these same thoughts of metta going outward to your other family members or roommates, people where you work, people that you see each day, different places, ordinary folks struggling to make ends meet, encountering all kinds of problems. With each out breath, expanding these vibrations. May all of them be well, happy and peaceful, free from greed, hatred, fear and ignorance. May all beings have the patience, strength, mindfulness and wisdom to meet and overcome all difficulties in life. May all beings be able to live peacefully and harmoniously together, understanding the ultimate interconnectedness and interdependence of all things. May all beings be well, peaceful and wise. I invite you to join in finishing the meditation, chanting the word sadhu 3 times slowly. Do that chanting of sadhu with a long out breath. Take a deep breath. Sadhu. 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 Now place your hands at the edge of your knees. Take one more deep breath as you breathe in. Stretch your head back. Pull the hands on your knees to arch your spine back. Let out the breath. On an in-breath, lift the head up. And on an out-breath, press the chin to the top of the chest. Stretch the neck vertebra. Lift the head up on an in-breath. Relax on the out-breath. Put a smile on your face. Okay, friends, this brings our evening Dhamma discussion and meditation to an end. They always say mindfulness should never end. Try to continue the practice in the daily life by doing the M&Ms, the minutes of meditation, stopping every hour during the day for 1 minute. Bring the mind back to the present moment. Let go of that neurotic push to the future. Okay, friends, so whatever you're doing this week, be well, be safe, be mindful, be wise. Namo Buddhaya. Mindfulness a day keeps dukkha away. Next Monday, I'll send out the sutta that we'll discuss next week. It'll be the sutta number 1 in the Majjhima Nikaya, the root of all things. Okay.
Thank you, Bhante. Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Buddhaya.
Thank you, Bhante.